Today's first reading talks about the just one who serve the cause of righteousness and suffer for it at the end of the wicked people. This passage has been seen in the Christian tradition as anticipating the hostility suffered by Jesus, the suffering just one by excellence. In fact, this reading is fulfilled in the life of Christ, the Son of God, who was put to death by jealous and wicked people, the Pharisees and the scribes of his time. This reading is also fulfilled in the life of all those who suffer today unjust persecution for being true and just. Like Christ, sometimes Christians are persecuted by their enemies and by even their own friends for doing the right thing. Good people will always suffer at the hands of the wicked ones. They suffer because their blameless lives are a reproach to the wicked. They make evildoers feel uncomfortable by what they say in confronting or denouncing injustice and evil. And sometimes just by the goods and the uprightness of their life. It is precisely because they are good that they suffer. However, these Christians must remain steadfast, because God will surely vindicate them as he vindicated Christ. Brother and sister, especially at this time where we are witnessing the suffering of the whole world because of that pandemic disease, and where in Hong Kong in the last few years we have been experiencing this socio-political turmoil that has shaken the whole city as never before, with now the consequences of a more severe control from those in authorities and of what we can say as the slow suppression of some civil rights. Especially in this difficult time, we Christians should not lose hope. The Lord, who is witnessing our despair and suffering, will never abandon us. We should be convinced of that. Our second reading of today reminds us of the importance of focusing sincerely on the things that unite us rather than on the one that divide us. We all desire an harmonious life. Yet, many Christian communities, many families and homes live in frequent conflict and disorder. As much as conflict are inevitable in life, we must not allow them to tear us apart. Sadly, the root of most of such conflict is selfish ambitions. So in the second reading of today, St. James admonishes us not to allow selfish ambition to destroy our relationship, our family, and our communities. He prevents us that where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder. Then he asks us, where do all these conflicts among you first start? Is it not precisely in the desire fighting inside your own self? You have an ambition that you cannot satisfy, so you fight to get it your way by force. Brother and sister, this is a fact that many families, marriages, communities, and nations have already been destroyed because of selfish ambition or desire of greatness. In today's gospel, we have the second prediction of the Passion. Jesus foretells his imminent suffering, death, and resurrection. Unfortunately, the disciples do not understand. Instead of reflecting on what Jesus was saying, motivated by selfish ambition, they were busy quarreling secretly and getting involved in argument as to which of them is the greatest. Of course, their argument was aimed at the earthly government that they imagined Jesus had come to establish. This kind of ambition is condemned by Jesus in the Gospel and by James in the second reading. Because selfish ambition not only created conflict and division, but is also very damaging for the unity of the community. Mark, in his Gospel, carefully reconstruct the scene. First, while the embarrassed disciple did not answer the question of Jesus, "What were you arguing about on the road?" and remained silent, Jesus sat down, taking the position of a rabbi who is preparing to teach an important lesson. Then he called his disciples to him and ordered them to get near, because he sees them separated, divided. Then he feels them distancing themselves from him. Finally, Jesus pronounced his solemn judgment on the true greatness of men. If someone wants to be first, let him be last of all. Let him be servant of all. For Jesus, it is not what someone do, but what he is that is important. Our self-worth should not depend on the work one does. This is a mistake that we often make. We tend to define and to evaluate people in terms of the job that they do. For example, if we learn that the person is a doctor, our estimation of the person goes up high. But if we learn that the person is an ordinary worker, our estimation stays earthbound. Do we realize that this is unfair? There is something more important than the job, namely the kind of human being behind the job. It was the mistake made by Jesus' disciple. They put the job or the position first. In their eyes, the greatest among them was the one who had the highest position. They obviously thought that Jesus would set up an earthly kingdom, and so each of them wanted to get a top position in his kingdom. But Jesus told them that his kingdom was not about seeking honor and glory for oneself, but about serving others. If they were prepared to serve others, then by all means they could have a top place in his kingdom. But they would not be sitting on high chair or on soft seats. They would be more likely to be down on their knees with a basin of water, washing the feet of the little one. And brother and sister, it should be just the same in the Christian community. Whoever occupied the first place has to put aside all desire of greatness. The church is not a stepping stone to get to position of prestige. It's not a stepping stone to emerge and to get control over others. It is the place where everyone comply with the gift he has received from God and celebrate their greatness in humble service to others. Therefore, by using a child as an example for his disciple, Jesus is simply teaching them and teaching us that we have to become like children in order to be great. It means that we have to live our life in humble service to God and to one another. In God's eyes, the greatest is the one who most resembles Christ, who is the servant of all by excellence. Amen.